Grid, what is going on? I'm super pumped because today I've got Linda McKissack with me. And for those that don't know Linda, let me just tell you, she's an inspiration. Her and Jimmy are an inspiration to me. Linda, I don't know if you remember this, but it was almost a decade ago where I was on this mini panel. I don't even know how I got on the panel, right? It was during the foreclosure crisis, and it was about living a big life, or it was some kind of big something tour that you guys were doing, and you came down to Virginia. And I was felt privileged that I was on this panel, and it was about building a life where you had real estate investments, right? And scaling a business. And I looked to you guys and I said, hey, you've got this 7th level team. You have, over 100 assets that you own. How do you do this? How can I replicate this? And you probably don't remember the advice that you gave me. You probably don't, but I'll share it with you real fast.
Probably hasn't changed over the years.
You probably, that's what's great. Principles are principles, right? But you said, Rob, get really good at your agent business. And what it's going to do is it's going to create a lot of opportunity for you in other areas, right?
Yep.
Title, mortgage, investments. And so I went to work because I wasn't running like a traditional agent business at the time. I was more of, doing investments and buying and fixing and flipping and buying and holding for my family. And it must have been around 2009, so it wasn't, it was 2009, 2010, I would imagine. That's when it really was, right? But that was the advice you gave me. And I took that to heart, and we just started building this thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm excited to have you on here again. And what I want to do is share you with our Grid community, right? We're a little over 15,000 people now. We have 16 different chapters in 8 different states. And we just recently launched in Tennessee and Scottsdale, Arizona. And we're looking at different parts, McAllen, Texas. Wendy Pappison runs San Antonio. And so we're on a mission to just help people build wealth through real estate. And what I wanted to do was share your story, because I think you have an amazing story. Your and Jimmy's story is an amazing story. And so with that, let's kind of go back in time. Let's get into that DeLorean, right? Go back to, in time and share with us a little bit about your real estate journey, because I know it wasn't easy, especially in the beginning, right? How you and Jimmy got started. I'd love to share that story with everybody.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I always say that I think sometimes, or most times, the worst thing that ever happens to you can eventually wind up being the best thing that ever happens to you. And I think if I had to title our story, that's what I would say about it. I always like to say I was in my mid-20s when we had a horrific economic crash in Texas. I think the states that hit the most was Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, because we were very heavily into the oil business. And I always like to say, I'm in my middle 20s at this point. I don't even know what the word economy means, much less is it a good one? Is it a bad one? I mean, no one in my family had ever gone to college. So I didn't go to college right out of high school. I got married and that quickly ended. And so when I got married to Jimmy, I was still trying to figure out, who am I? What can I do to make anything more than minimum wage? Because I'm a real hard worker, but all my jobs, had really literally paid me about minimum wage. And so Jimmy, being the kind of great man that he is, he said, well, why don't you go back to college, figure out who you are. And, I went back to college, but I was pretty far into college when the crash happened, and I wasn't really figuring out a lot of tools of the trade that would make me a lot of money. So when Jimmy came to me and said, we're in a mess. We're $600,000 upside down in debt, because he had actually sold a restaurant and nightclub in Dallas that we had gone to try to, make it big. It was kind of a mini Dave & Buster's, if you will. And we had gone, cashed in our chips from one small successful location and gone to Dallas to try to make it big there. And with the economic crash, we literally had to sell that business for 600 less than what we owed against it. And the banks just immediately took those notes. So, I always like to say, again, I didn't know what the word economy meant, much less how massive that really was. And I think because of that, I always say I've been married to Jimmy 39 years. I don't usually wake up and say, what do you think I should do? I do what the heck I think I should do. Right. But that day I was pretty lost. And I said to him, well, he had said to me, I really need your help. I need you to go to work and help me try to figure this out. And I said, that's great. But what in the world can I do? Other than waitressing and bartending at your nightclubs where I'd make great tips, I really had never found anything that I could do that made a lot of money. And he said, a mentor, a Pee Wee football coach of his, used to drive all the way across town to pick Jimmy up to play on his football team. And he said, that guy told me one time, if you ever want to make a lot of money, real estate is the way to do it. Now, I have since learned that man was a huge developer and builder out of Dallas. I don't think he said, what, get a wife, get her to sell houses. You guys will be rich forever. Jimmy misunderstood the message. But to be honest with you, I'm really thankful because real estate was a great cash flow opportunity. Honestly, I mean, once I figured it out, I always like to say in the beginning, I'm a slow learner in the fact that my first year I only made $3,000 gross. And Jimmy had to tell me, Linda, we're not going the right way, honey. I'm spending 15 to buy all your stuff and you're making 3. This math is not working. But, it's because back then, Rob, honestly, there was no training. There was no education. I literally, if a title company hadn't paid for me a free ticket to go see Mike Ferry in Fort Worth, Texas, I don't know where I would have been, because I realized that if you want to do anything in the world, anything, just go find the people that are already doing it and go find out what they're doing and just do it, right? Just do what they tell you to do. And you might fail your way forward and stumble your way forward, but 99% of the time, whatever they tell you worked for them is going to work for you. And so that was a huge stepping stone for me to start looking, to other people. If I wanted to accomplish something, how do you build a big real estate business? And if you want to do investing, how do you do investing? And so, but the good news about the story is the pain of that, I think, left in our minds the fact that there's got to be people out there that what I like to call, when I teach fierce conversations, gradually and suddenly happens to, they don't wind up losing everything like we did. We didn't own any real estate back then, but we literally had to drive a beat up car. We had to, cut way back on everything we had. I mean, we really had to just kind of get our boots on and figure out what the heck to do with this situation. But I think because of that, it left in our mind that we needed to study people that were wealthy, that when economic downturns happen, they don't get in those kind of situations. Because I always like to say, it's not a marriage enriching situation to be that far in debt. You don't come home and say, hi, dear, how was your day? You say, where the heck are we going to get some money? And how are we going to get out of this mess? And so I think, again, if you give something long enough and you look for the lessons in it and you say, what can I learn or how can I change this situation? It can wind up being the greatest blessing ever. And I think because of that, we became more ready for opportunity to build cash, wealth and passive income, not just a job where you have cash flow or a business where you have cash flow.
And, that's a valuable point, because what happened was you first had to learn how to make money, right? In the business, right? It's like, I call it ringing the bell. You got to go and figure out how to ring that bell and then learn how to just keep ringing it over and over again. But then one day you realize, wait a second, and not everybody gets this initially early. Like, there's only so long I can ring that bell. I need to start transferring over some of that money and do what I call like an income flip, right? Take it from, kind of like an earned income side to a passive income side. So, when did that realization happen? Like, how did that occur? How did that transition happen?
Well, I think when you become aware of something is when you start to see opportunities that have been there all along, but you're not the person that's ready to see them, right? So while we were actually climbing our way out of the $600,000 in debt, we had read a book, Cash Flow Quadrant. We had learned that you needed to get unearned income, money coming in passively to you. And so I think, as in almost everything in my life, once I made a decision about something, the opportunities started showing up and I could see them. I couldn't see them last week because of what hadn't made that decision to do it. And so I went out on an appointment, and this person wanted to sell their house, and it was in pretty bad shape. They weren't living in it anymore and had foundation issues, and it was just empty, and it was just in bad shape. And I came home to Jimmy super pumped and said, man, I think we can make $15,000 on this house. And the guy said, I just want to sell it to an investor or somebody who doesn't care what kind of shape it's in. And so when I went home and I was all excited with Jimmy, he immediately reminded me that, Linda, that's fantastic, but we can't go to the bank. We owe them, we're still paying off $600,000 and we don't have any money. And so I went to sleep that night, and I woke up the next morning and my builder's name was on my lips. I thought, Lou Craft, he will do it with me. If I go to him and I ask him, I've got the validity and the knowledge about this. I've got the opportunity. He's got the money. I will go to him and I'll ask him, and I feel pretty confident he'll say yes. And so literally that's how we bought our first 3 properties. That one we flipped and made the 15, and almost to the day that we flipped it, a girl in my office came to me, and because we had a bunch of foreclosures in Texas back then by the RTC, which is the entity that was taking the savings and loans foreclosures. And she said to me, Linda, I know you're wanting to do this, and there's a house by the University of North Texas, and they want $15,000 for it. So I ran back to Lou and I said, let's don't cash the money. Let's put it into this other property. And so he went over there with us, and when he looked at it, he said, hey guys, this is metered. We could do a 4-plex out of this thing. So he, I said, well, all I got's my commission. And he said, that's fine. And so we jumped into that deal, and then we bought one more. And then, I always like to tell the story that first one we bought, eventually we split our partnership with Lou and said, we wouldn't be here without you. So which of these 2 houses that we now have do you want? And he took the second one. And so the first one that we held, not the first one we flipped, that house is paid off, and it actually pays us more than Jimmy's Social Security for working for 40 years.
That's wild. That's wild, right? One house.
One house. That's a 4-plex. Yep.
That's wonderful. And so you were off to the races, right? Like it was a belief system, something kind of like snapped in you and said, okay, I'm going to do more of this, right? Yeah. But you had the balance, I'm sure, because you were running a real estate team, a very successful real estate team, and you're also doing these investments. So how did you, just out of curiosity, how did you balance that? How did that occur?
Very, very unbalanced in the beginning, to be honest with you, because Rob, back then, realtors worked 80 hours a week. That's literally what you did, because no one had assistants. I literally was the first person in my town to hire assistants, and the other realtors treated me awful. They thought I was lying, cheating, and stealing by having someone, answer their phone call. It was a real battle, to be honest with you. But I had gone to California by this time several times out to a Mike Ferry seminar, and I was already seeing that the way agents were doing more business is they were leveraging off all the stuff that was $15 an hour, and they were, working the $200, $300 an hour stuff. And I very quickly got that math, so it wasn't easy, and there was not training, to be honest with you. There was no offices. You got 1 week before you started, and that was it. That you good luck. I hope you figure this out. So in the beginning, I have to be honest, until I really, because I was actually outperforming, how quickly I could hire people. And so, because I got very early on, you got a list. I'm all about leverage and freedom. If I start feeling pinned up, I'm going to find the leverage point, or I'm going to find the freedom point, and I'm going to get out of it. And so I very quickly realized if I just would focus on listings, I'd get more freedom. And so once I was getting that done, that's when the balance came in. When I started hiring more people and working, just on the listing side of it, I got more balance, until one day, 12 years in the business, doing 200 transactions, I looked up and said, this ain't enough freedom for me. I get a little bit of time off on Saturday to go check my voicemail and make sure nobody's calling in to want to list their house. I've got buyer agents out working the buyers, but on Sunday, I might get half a day off if I'm lucky. And I just thought, you know what? I feel trapped. I feel like this isn't enough freedom for me. So I again started reinventing myself. And by this time, we're owning quite a few houses. We had put a plan together to buy 20 properties, have them free and clear in 20 years. by the time Jimmy was 60, because he was almost 40 when we started.
Mm-hmm.
So we had that plan pretty much working. But I just looked up and said, I want to work more on wealth building and other passive incomes. And, from Kiyosaki's, the 3 ways to do that is businesses, real estate, or stocks. And we don't really like stocks because you're really more of a speculator. You're at somebody else's mercy. It's not really something you can, touch, feel, or control. And so we said, well, let's just do real estate. And then at that 12th year, I started switching and said, okay, let me look at doing just pure businesses and create more wealth that way.
I'm curious. I mean, I found that doing it through businesses, well, actually, I'd love to get your opinion. Doing it through businesses or doing it through real estate, which one do you prefer?
Honestly, for me, I actually prefer the businesses, and I'll tell you why. And I like the thrill of finding the deal or figuring out a way to find deals. Like, I love the real estate investing on the front end when I figured out that there was such a thing as the foreclosure steps. And I'm a real pioneer. And the beautiful thing, Rob, is I'm a multiplier and Jimmy's a simplifier. So we make a beautiful combination. And if you if you're a multiplier, then find you a simplifier. If you're a simplifier, find you a multiplier, because multipliers make big messes. They go find opportunity. I think one of my unique gifts is I can see opportunity, especially for me or other people, that other people can't see. I can talk to a person and go, man, here's your opportunity. And so, for me, I've learned to really love, and I'm a pretty introverted person, but I love the succeeding through people, because what I'm fascinated with now is collaboration. So instead of anybody competing, what if we looked at what your strengths are and we looked at what my strengths are, and we probably even serve the same audience, but we put those together and we make something more beautiful that nobody else could make, because nobody else has you and nobody else has me. Does that make sense? And
Who,
so,
not how, babe. Absolutely. Like, have you read the book?
I've been coached by Dan's program for I'm going on my 8th year.
Oh,
I love
okay.
Yeah.
Oh my.
I love
by the
it.
way, I had never heard of Dan, which is crazy because now I'm like, I see him everywhere, but I'd never heard of Dan Sullivan 6 months ago. I got the book, Who Not How. It was referred to me. And literally, it's the best book that I've read in like a decade, right? I was like, this book changed. And, the concept at surface level, it just, it's like, hey, it makes sense, right? But when you read the book and you go down deep and you understand how powerful collaboration is and how it's not about competition, it's about collaboration, and how 2 people can just create that rocket fuel.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. We had Dan on our podcast, Everything Life in Real Estate, and we had him talk about who, not how, because, and I've been coached by great people like Gary Keller, and still coach today. And every time I get a chance to be in front of him, I will be. And he's the very first person that taught me the difference between succeeding through talent. And Dan takes that to a new level too, because the other part of what I love about owning businesses is I love finding people that I can put them and their unique ability on my team, and they just shine because they're getting to do the 1 or 2 things that they actually are phenomenal at. And then we've got other people on the team that are doing the other pieces. And I'm telling you, I've been experimenting and playing with that for the last probably a little over 1.5 to 2 years. And amazing results are coming out of that. So, and Gary says the same thing with hiring talent, but this is taking it to the micro level of, let's get down to, even if you and I were just doing 1 or 2 or 3 things, that was our lane, that is our gift, that we just, and sometimes the things are so easy for you think they're easy for everybody, and they're not, right? They're easy for you. But the more I play with that with my team members, oh my gosh, it gets more and more fun. And so it could be that the reason I'm saying that now is because that's my new shiny object. And I'm a pioneer. So I like things on the front end. I get us into everything that we've ever gotten into. I let us into real estate sales. I let us into real estate investing. I let us into profit share. I let us into vacation rentals. I'm the pioneer, but Jimmy makes it beautiful and makes it scale and do all those great things.
So you're talking about the different income streams that you have, right? So you've got the teams in the market, or let's say the market centers, right? And go ahead.
And my team, I actually, over the next, I think we have about another 5 years or so, we will be completely paid off. So Brad ran my team, like you referenced in the beginning, at the 7th level for 20 plus years. Then we put a structured payout where he would pay about 1.1 million before it was done over a 10-year period to pay us completely out. So ran it for 20 years so that I could get my freedom and my time back to go build wealth in other ways. And Jimmy just oversaw the team. And so we still had that income. And now what we have from the team is we have that payout that comes out a set amount every month until it's paid off completely.
Until it's paid off.
Yeah. And then we have 5 market centers. Let me see. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. 5 market centers, Keller Williams market centers. We have a profit share stream that's right around 1.4, 1.5 million each year. We have vacation rentals where we actually have 26, I believe. And we are building 12 more. 8 are on the ground, but we're stopping the last 4 because of lumber costs. So we're got 8 more coming up into this year and the beginning of the next. 4 will be finished in August. The other 4 will be finished probably February if it doesn't stop raining in Branson.
Yeah, and I love that story because I believe that somebody within your network made you aware of Branson, right? And they said, "Hey, I'm buying here." So tell that story because I think that that's part of a collaboration play as well, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you've heard this or not. And one more stream that we've actually just added, Rob, is the online courses and education because I love to teach. I love to share just like you do with other people. And so this opportunity in the vacation rentals came. I always say, here's my formula for doing anything. And this is a book that I have in progress. It's called capital R plus capital V plus another capital V over capital T. So what does that mean? Relationships. What relationships do you need to have in your life? You know, it could be who do you want to be a hero to? Who gives you energy by helping? Who's got the money that you need to sell your service to, and you would enjoy it, and so would they. Who do you need in your life that may open doors to opportunity? Who do you need to mentor and coach? Who do you need in your life to help support you with whatever you do? So everything has to do with relationships. And then the next one is the capital V that says, if I don't have the validity, I can't open the door to any relationship that I want to open to. You know, if I called you today or you called me today, we'd both take that call instantly because we both have validity with each other. But if you haven't created validity, it's harder to get that relationship door open. And so I got to figure out what validity do I need and how do I keep growing my validity, or how can I use other people's validity? And I always like to say this about validity. Everybody has it and nobody thinks they do, but everybody has it, right? And then the next thing I got to do is figure out whoever I'm trying to do service with or whatever I'm trying to do, recruit or do whatever, what's their value or value gap that what's a value to them right now, most important, or what is a big value gap that they have that if I could start to step into that value gap, then I would create this amazing motivator that Robert Cialdini calls reciprocity or beholdenness. And as I create that, people can't stand for you to outgive them. So what they want you to do is they want to figure out what can I do back with you. And so a lot of times that's just step into a deeper relationship with me. If I ask you, you know, to do something with me, the answer will be yes, because I've done that formula. And then I got to, whatever the situation is, I got to put enough time in for that to pay off. And everything has a different time loan. If I'm selling a house, I'm going to get that money in probably 30, 60 days. If I'm buying investment property, it could take a little bit longer because I got to just figure out who are the people that I need to be a hero to, and what's my validity that's going to allow them to want me to be the person that buys their house. And then what's their biggest value gap right now? Is it pain from, you know, devastation, divorce, drugs, whatever, if it's an investment property. But in this case, we had been teaching and mentoring in our office, like you know that we always do. And we had allowed our agents to bring any of their friends or clients that they wanted to bring, because our goal was to teach the hold method and serve them and give them validity with their investors, right? So this girl brings her best friend who is a stay-at-home mom, and she comes to the class that Jimmy teaches that day in Flower Mound. And then a few weeks later, Gary Keller and Jimmy passed on an opportunity to do a breakout with Robert Kiyosaki, and I'm definitely not passing on that deal. So I took it, and she comes to that class, but we don't know she's in the room. And we meet her, a few months later and find out that her kid is in the same class as my kid. We just didn't know each other. And she comes up to us at a football game and says, "Hey, I just wanted y'all to know I've been buying investment properties." And she had a really big number already because she'd been doing short sales. This was back during short sales. And I said, "Oh my gosh," because Gary's taught me to recognize talent. I thought, man, this girl's talent to do that quickly. So I said, "Oh, hey, why don't you and I meet for coffee once a month at the Barnes and Nobles, and let's hold each other accountable for doing more investments." And she said, "Okay, I'd love to do that." Well, every month, all she talked about was these vacation rentals in Branson, Missouri, until one month she says, "Hey, I short sell 2 and I can only afford to buy 1. Do y'all want to buy the other one?" And that was it. We were off to the races. We
looked at the numbers. Yeah. You looked at then you started building them. It sounded like,
Yep. So we drove there that next day because we wanted to feel it and touch it and see. And we'd been to Branson before because our kids had actually attended a Christian camp outside of there. But iciest day of the year, what would normally take us 7 hours took us 14. So we got there already thinking, oh, I don't know about this. But we fell in love with the cabins and the coziness and the experience. And yeah, we've since built. Now we are building more, and we've bought. People know we buy, so they call us when they want to sell one.
Well, I noticed, and when I went to your office, I think it was, when was that, 4 or 5 years ago? I'm not sure what year it was.
Yeah, right? It goes so fast. Yeah, I think 4 or 5 years.
What did you call your room? Is it the war room or the situation?
It's actually called the strategy room.
The strategy room.
Yeah. Right? Yes.
And I remember at the time, it sounded like you guys were selling some of your assets and replacing them with others, right? Yeah. Why were you doing that? I'm curious.
Well, we are the hold people. We did write the book Hold, but we have sold, we've had many hundreds of properties, and we've had partnerships that either the partner wanted to sell out or we want to sell out. So we've taken some and we sold some that way. We also have top graded some of the properties who just, honestly, we should have kept them because now they're like quadrupled in price. But again, we've never regretted holding. We've always regretted selling, right?
Sure.
But then also we just recently, we've just refinanced a bunch to get ready for a big business opportunity that's coming down the pipeline for us that we think is going to come up pretty quick. And we want to be ready for that. And, but we just refinanced those, and we just refinanced about half of them. And we're still like 65% loan to value ratio on, because a lot of them were getting real close to being paid off. And we've sold a few just just not really good neighborhoods where we felt like it was going to keep going up. It was just going to keep deteriorating, or the house needed too much repairs, or we were just dissolving a partnership. Because sometimes we'll buy properties, like with Brad, we bought properties as kind of part of his incentive package. We still do buy some properties, but occasionally he'll need cash, so he wants to sell. So we usually just go ahead and sell if that's what he wants to do, if we have a partner. But majority of our time, we still hold.
Okay. And so what would a couple things. I want to go back. I love Who Do You Want to Be a Hero To? When I read that in the book, it hit me like a ton of bricks, because I was like, I know exactly who I want to be a hero to. And I need to spend more time doing that, right? And this is why we're doing this, right? Yeah. I love helping people learn this piece. So I want to go back a little bit. You would set up a plan, a basic 20 properties, right? One a year. You wanted them paid off in 20 years, right? I believe there were the rents were $1,000 a month, because the idea was you wanted to have $20,000 in passive income that was coming in. And that initial spark, that thought, then obviously led to something substantially larger, right? Substantially larger. But what would you tell yourself, now, your younger self? Like, what have you learned in that process? How could you have made that move faster, right? Your path is your path, but I'm just curious, when you look back, you're like, oh, we could have done this a little bit better. We could have done this a little bit faster, right?
Yeah, I think it boils down to courage. One of the things that Dan teaches that was another huge impact to me when I saw it, because I realized the way my life had gotten so massively big is because I actually had unknowingly followed this, what he calls his 4C formula. And I think anybody that's listening to this, you can probably follow along and go, yep, that's what I've done too. Or that's, that's what it's going to take if you want to do it. And that is, you got to make commitments that scare you. When you're $600,000 in debt and you're making a plan to make almost $250,000 in passive income and buy 20 properties, that's a scary commitment. And the way, like Dan says, the way you know it's a scary commitment is the minute you make it, you wet your pants. And the difference between fear and courage is fear is where you wet the pants, and courage is where you just do the commitment with those wet pants on. You don't bother to go take them off. You just go ahead and do it, right? And then the reason it takes courage is because you don't have all the credentials when you start anything. There's just no way to have all the credentials. It's just not possible, right? And that's what people wait for. And so what happens is you don't like that horrible place called courage. So you hurry and get those credentials. And then you get this amazing C called confidence. A lot of people stop right there. They don't now go out and look for that next scary commitment. And that's what you have to do. And so if I was talking to my younger self, I would say, go find those big, scary commitments sooner. Go do more of them. Don't stop. Keep doing them. And because, it's not what we want to do. We get complacent. I like to call that the 5th C. Dan doesn't recognize the 5th C, but I do, because I feel like I myself has found myself in complacency. And once I was aware, it's kind of like once you know something, you can't pretend you don't. Now I'm like looking around going, what's my next big scary commitment? If you think about it, it's the funnest time of your life anyway. It's horribly, scary, but it's so fun, really. And so, but the more successful you get, the harder it gets to make yourself go out and go, well, where's that next big scary commitment I can jump myself right in the middle of?
Well, what I saw you doing a few years back, and I've seen it evolve, is you started entering into okay, I've done this. I know how to build this. And now I'm going to start coaching and training and building websites and creating content and landing pages and opt-in and all that stuff. So how has that evolved? Tell me a little bit about that. And you've got your podcast, right?
Yeah.
So how many episodes have you done now of the podcast?
Oh gosh, that is 300 and something. I mean,
wow.
It's unbelievable. I'm terrible. I never know the numbers. I do things that give me joy and give me energy and make me happy and can serve others. And then I don't worry about I'll let somebody else worry about the numbers, but I know it's over 150 something thousand downloads, and it's been really fun. And all of this, honestly, Rob, is doing what you and I were talking about, and what you mentioned that you said, I love that, and I want to spend more time with who I want to be a hero to. As I begin to pay more attention to what things give me energy and what give me joy, and what could I do for the next 25 years and never tire of it. I used to say, it's the thing that you love doing so much that you don't remember how when people used to say, hey, what could you do for free? Well, that didn't ever resonate with me, because I'm like, I don't know. Volunteer is about the only thing I could do for free. I hated it when people put it that way. But now what I realized is what they really should have said is, what could you do that you love so much that you don't worry about the pay? Because you understand that when you bring value to the world, you can't keep the pay away. If you can bring enough value to the world, the money's just going to show up. I like that all better, And so all I really started focusing on is, okay, what are the things that give me joy, that give me energy, that I love doing? And then what's that next natural door that's trying to open? And natural doors do open if you're paying attention. And what I found is, and someone had told me this a long time ago and I didn't know it, it's definitely taken me longer on the online world because it was so foreign to me. And to be honest with you, Rob, freedom is so important to me that I looked at all those online people and I thought, heck, I don't want what they have. They got jobs. I don't want none of that. But I've learned a different way to do it, in a way that it's not a job for me, or the part of the job that I have is this kind of stuff. I'm speaking on the podcast, or I'm teaching, or I'm doing the recordings of the teaching. I can do all that, but don't give me a job, because I've been working my whole life to get rid of all those, right? And so I struggled in the beginning, because when I started seeking the people that could answer those questions for me, I looked up and said, they don't have freedom. And, I'm one of those that always have plan A, plan B, C, D, and E, because I know that gradually and suddenly can happen. And so I'm just always looking for what's that next natural door that's a natural step to take into that I would enjoy doing, and that would give me energy, and that I would serve the tribe and the people I want to be a hero to. And then I just keep looking for those next opportunities. And I keep putting the people around me that make it look like I know everything I know about all that. And I don't know hardly any of it. I just know my lane, and that's all I have to know is my lane.
So who do you want to be a hero to?
Honestly, for me, it's that successful but overworked, and specifically that successful but overworked real estate entrepreneur. I love entrepreneurs, period. Don't give me a CEO or somebody that's got a job that's spending somebody else's money for coaching or training and all that stuff. I'm not interested. I'm interested in the person that goes out there and takes nothing and makes it into something. And for me specifically, because I've spent the last 30 years here, I love people that love real estate, and so I've primarily kept my lane, although we do have some people that have reached us out that are just entrepreneurs. But I love the real estate entrepreneur that is trying to figure out leverage and wants more freedom in their life. And they want all the same things that you and I want. And they just don't know how to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've walked the path and can give them guidance and mentorship in that process. Right. Because you've made the mistakes and you've got the battle scars and you have had the partnerships, and I love that, Linda. I think that's awesome. By the way, it's the same person I want to be a hero to as well.
There you go. That's absolutely.
Yeah. And I think part of it is, for me, I went through a period of time where, my daughter's 19 now, and she, which just blows my mind. Right. But she was like, Dad, I just remember how hard you were working. Right. And that's not the memory that I want her to have. Right. I want her to have a different memory, but that memory, that is the memory. It was like, hey, you and Mom were working all the time building this business. And so, we can't go back and rewind that clock. We could only, take that information and move forward in a great way. But I feel that I can help that next real estate entrepreneur do it a little bit better, a little bit smarter, a little bit faster, find the leverage, sooner, and get off the treadmill, or, faster. Right. And it just starts with a thought like that. It's like, hey, have you thought about what the next 10 or 15 years is going to look like? Right. Are you going to stay on that treadmill the whole time? Or are you going to do something different that is going to create legacy, wealth for your family? Right. So I think it's just all part of that journey. So I've loved watching what you guys are doing online. And the online thing is I feel you too, where you're like, wow, those people are on all the time. They're like a prisoner. They seem like they get a prisoner to social media. Right. Is that what you want? But there are ways, like you said, there's ways to do it like this, where you just create the content and then you chop it up in 1,000 different places and pieces, and other people do that, and great. It's awesome. Yeah. So what courses are you teaching right now? What classes are you teaching?
Well, the first one we created was a profit share course, and it's exclusive to people that are in Keller Williams. But this is where this formula got birthed, because and when I really looked at it, this formula is what I've used for everything I've ever done. If you send me, when Gary sent me to Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky to build Keller Williams, that's the formula I used. To build my real estate practice to over 200 transactions a year, that's the formula I used. And when it came time to do profit share, because it's the only thing I knew, that's the formula I used, right? So we've been teaching that exclusively. And I love the way we're doing it, because we rolled out the course and they buy the online course and then they jump on a monthly call with us. So I love it, because once a month I'm getting to connect with them and help answer questions about, what do you need? What went well? What's your win from this? And where are you struggling, moving this along? And so that's been fun. We'll probably do something very similar. I'm actually creating a listing course right now, because listings to me is one of the highest forms of leverage. And when I looked out in the world, there wasn't really a one place and I saw a lot of agents that didn't understand how important it was to become a strong listing agent for sustainability and income leveling out and longevity in the business. So we are actually finishing up in the next 30 days a full online listing course that will teach them, what mindset do you need to be a strong listing agent, what scripts, what dialogues, all the things to switch your mindset from chasing these buyers that have to be wearing you completely out to how do I focus and become a strong listing agent? And we're doing that because it's easy. That stuff's all the stuff I've taught for 30 plus years anyway. And so I'm doing the things, I'm taking the low hanging fruit first. And then we're also have started the investing course to do the same thing. So what'll happen is we'll roll that online course out, and then once a month they can jump on a call with Jimmy and I, or Jimmy or whatever, whoever's, I'm sure both of us will probably do it once a month, and we can kind of guide them and walk them along. And so that's what I have so far. And then ultimately I may move to helping other people do some of these same things. Like, let us teach you how to, because everybody has knowledge and information that the world could use. And so we'll probably move from that one to, we've got a really good system and we're really doing a good job of learning what that looks like and putting it together. So we'll probably help other, maybe realtors or whoever that wants to do it, do some of those same things. And I'm going to write this next book, this R plus V over T will be a next little book that I do.
I love that. And you've probably been thinking 1,000 different ways. What is the title of the book? Is that the title? Right. That's the thing. It's like, what's the title? How is it going to resonate with the audience? Like, am I speaking directly to the avatar? Right. So I'm excited to see what's the deadline? What's the goal? Have you set yourself? Or are you just?
No, I'm moving. I got quite a few projects. I got a great girl that's a great project manager that's moving us along really pretty fast on all of it. I have all of these things, the investment course, the listing course, profit share has already been out. We've got about 400 and something members that have already doing it. So that part's fun. And it rolls out every month. So new people join us every month. But the book and the other investing course, I put it to be done by the end of the year. So that's kind of our deadline, if you will. And I no longer, we have two big books. We have Presentation Mastery for Realtors, which I've updated and taken the 2 best chapters, and we're just going to use those as kind of giveaways for people. And then we're going to, we have Hold, of course, how to find, buy, and rent houses to build wealth. But I'm going to now I'm going to move to the little books because I've discovered that I'm not out to be famous to anybody other than the people I want to be famous to. I'm just looking for validity in the tribe I want to be valid to. So I don't want to go spend 35, 45, 50,000. Now that doesn't mean that someday this book might not turn into something like that, but it'll happen organically if it does. Right now, it'll be a small book that I can give away to people. It's small. If I sell it, it's super cheap. That just makes me reach more of the kind of people I want to reach.
Sure. It's an introduction. The 4 C's. You gave me that book, and it's a small little book, right? It's a fun book.
Yeah. Dan puts out 1 a quarter. I'm not going to get so aspirational that I say I'll do that.
1 a quarter. That's wild.
That is wild.
That is wild. That's awesome. Well, so the course, the training piece is the next big frontier, right? You're going to continue building all of these things. I'm just curious, do you have leaders that are running the profit share side, or is that you? Do you have somebody that's running the offices? I would imagine, right? Investments might be Jimmy, right? How have you kind of organized your world?
Yeah. Pretty much. Again, I told you, I do what I do, which is this. I do as much of this as I can. I do our podcast. We'll be doing an investment one eventually once we get our crap together on that one. I find it's harder if I've got to figure out the schedule between Jimmy and I both and all that stuff. But we will get it. We'll get it figured out because he's super busy in Branson right now. But yes, there's pretty much people doing all the pieces that I'm not very good at. And we're about to hire. We're going to go after a really strong marketing person that can run the whole side of our Infusionsoft, the social media, everything. Because right now I have a girl temporarily doing that that kind of works part-time with us to do that. And then I have Sarah who kind of helps me move the project along. She's the one that's helping me create the listing course. And Press, my son, which you met at the event that we did, he is the one that pretty much put the whole Profit Share Mastery course together, but he's got a full-time job, so he had to do it on the side. So I'm going to start now looking for people who this would be their full-time thing to do. And to be honest with you, I love to do the small groups like we did that you guys came 4 or 5 years ago, where we do the evening before. It's our home. We love people in our home and love to get more, close with people and have that more intimate setting, and then just have a small group. I don't have a desire to have 30,000 people in an audience, listening to me. Necessarily, that's not what I want to create, but I love those small working groups. And I have a dream to eventually maybe have on our ranch, where we have 2 vacation rentals, places we can actually go out and show you like if we were going to remodel a house, here's all the products that we would pick and choose. And here's why we'd pick Home Depot, and here's why we'd pick Lowe's on these. And this is, you know what I mean? I mean, more hands-on. I always say we want to be the how-to of the Chip and Joanna Gaines. They give everybody the dream, the millions of people the dreams, but we want to take the few people out of that they don't want to just dream about it. They want to do it. And so that's kind of in my long-term, goals is to maybe have a place set up here locally in the Dallas area where when people came in, we could actually go show you a house, and we could take you through the different steps of it. Because I learn better if I see. I don't learn as well when I just read about it. But if you can show me what you're talking about, what does that mean? And what is that, because some of the stuff, is the language can be overwhelming to some people until you you realize it's not really that complicated. But if you don't know what people are talking about, it can sound complicated.
Yeah, Linda, it's interesting because that's what we did. That's how we learned. There was a local investor that would hold a seminar at one of his projects. And what he did was, I think we paid something like, and it was really smart. And then we started copying it years later because I was like, that was such a great experience. I think it was like $1,500 for the weekend. And he literally walked you through the entire project, how the acquisition happened, what the renovation cost was going to be, the ARV, like the type of paint, the cabinets, like everything. So, so when you walked away, you felt like, okay, you got everything from, cradle to grave. And then what he did was interesting. He said, listen, and if you bring me a deal, I'll credit you back the $1,500 that you spent for this. Right.
That's good. That's good.
It's great. And then, so what that did is it puts you into action at that point. Right.
Yeah.
And we found years later, so we learned, that's how we learned, we did it. And I remember thinking, man, that was such a great experience. We need to offer that same experience to, and we just paid that forward. And then those people have become partners. Some of those people run our grid chapters in other areas now. Right. It's pretty amazing to kind of see where you just kind of give that information with, I believe that everybody should pay for, we give a lot of free content away, but there's something about when you actually pay for it, you put your money in there. It's like you want a return on that investment. At least that's how I operate. Right.
Me too. Yeah.
And then you go and you're able to figure out how to monetize that. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would love that. Well, whenever you do it again, let me know. We'd love to come out. So we'll start wrapping this up a little bit, but I'm just curious, right? Because we've talked about a lot of different things. I'll give you the makeup of our room. We've got 15,000 people. There is the 80-20 rule, right? There's a lot of people that are getting started, want to get started, they've got some knowledge. And so the majority of our group are people that are learning and growing. 20% are doing a lot, right? We've got investors that are doing hundreds of transactions, a year in our local area, and they're plugged into what we do. But there's that group that's trying to figure out how to move this thing forward, how to move the dream forward, right? What advice would you give to that person, right? What advice would you give, to the person that maybe they're still holding on to that job. They want to leave that so that they can pursue this bigger dream that they have. I'm just curious how you might coach somebody like that. What would you say to them?
Well, it depends because, we knew that our cash flow was going to come from somewhere else, and this cash flow was going to be future cash flow. So if now my nephew, he took everything we were doing, and he eventually quit his job and did it. So I would just say, well, be realistic, because I'm kind of a cautious person. I don't over leverage everything, because that's how everybody lost everything in the 80s in Texas. They were way over leveraged. So, I would say, set a number that when you get to that number, you're going to, because there is a certain point where you know what you need to know, right? But if you're procrastinating and you're not moving at all, then you've got a gap of something you need to fill. maybe you need a partner. Like we went and got a partner because there's no way we could have done the first 3 without a partner because we didn't have the money or the credit being that far in debt. So we were missing a who, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if it's knowledge, then get that knowledge. But if you're waiting for 100%, forget that. You're never going to have 100. Go at 60 or 70, and you learn in motion. People learn best in action. And so I would say, either set a number that you're gonna at this point, I know how to buy properties. I've already bought this many. This is the date I'm going to burn the boat. Because you already know you have the skill and you're going to do the lead generation. See, a lot of times it's lead generation that causes people to not be successful. They won't try to go find the properties. And so if you're going to do that, you've got the hardest part, and if you're willing to pull the trigger on a property and buy it, that's the hard part too, is making that commitment, but you're already making those commitments. So just make a decision on how many you feel comfortable that you got to have, and then just burn that boat. Because I find when you got one foot in the boat and the other on the land, you don't go anywhere.
You got to commit.
You got to commit. And so, and then ask yourself, what happens if I don't do this? What does my life look like in 20 years if I don't do this? We had a girl on our podcast. She's in our Profit Share Mastery course. But when I heard her, I said, you need to come on we also have a Profit Share podcast. I forgot about that one that drops on the 21st, of course, every month. But what I love about what she said was she was in the retirement home business forever. And she said, let me tell you, because we always wonder, how do we get people to understand the importance of working today for something they're going to get in the future? That's the hardest part, I think, about what we do, right? And she said, let me share with you some of the stories that I've come across because people were not financially prepared for their parents to be older or for themselves to be older. It's not a pretty picture. It's pretty sad. And so I think the more people can put themselves into, look, I don't have to do anything, but if I don't, what does that look like? If I fast forward 15, 20 years, do I have options? Do I have choices? Do I have freedom? I always say there's so many things that come from you just going and trying to do everything you do the best you can, and letting never how much money shows up. Because we tend to have these financial thermostats, I think, that hold people back. But I tell you what's been great joy is when we could step into some elderly family member and pay off their house and give them a life estate. Man, that's priceless. And you can't do that and never even blink an eye about doing it. You can't do that if you haven't really committed to this kind of stuff. And so those are the unexpected gifts that you don't realize you're going to get if you will just kind of commit to this. There's too many people that are telling you you'll be better off if you do it. You're going to have to do a little bit of it on blind faith, I think, and then reap the rewards later.
For sure. So let's talk to the other group real fast, the 20%, the ones that are either in that group where they are working all the time and they're trying to figure out, they're stressed out, right? They are in that messy middle, right? And what advice would you give them as they know how to do the deals, they've been doing the deals, and now they're scaling their business and they feel trapped by their business potentially. They're stuck, right? And they're trying to figure out how do they win back some of their time, right? It might be a leadership issue. It could be a who issue, right? But what have you commonly seen?
Are you talking about people who have a real estate business or they have an investment business? Or both?
Both. Right?
Okay.
Both. I mean, to me, the real estate entrepreneur, it's kind of the avatar that you're saying, that overworked real estate entrepreneur that's like, okay, I've got a business, but I'm the business right now, or I'm a big part of that business, right? And they're trying to figure out how to get back their time.
Well, I would say I can promise you probably 100% of whatever you're doing, your business is doing, you're not enjoying every piece of it. So how you get your joy back is you start giving away those pieces that drain your energy, that are annoying or that are just okay. And you start moving into the pieces of whatever your business is that actually light you up and give you energy, right? And then, of course, you're always asking yourself, am I sacrificing my family, which is nobody wants to do at the end of their career, look back and say, well, man, I screwed that up, So I mean, if you're doing that, you got to stop it immediately. And even if you go backwards, that's just what you do. But I would say just reflect on what pieces of the job do you really love anyway, and get somebody else that would light their fire to do the other pieces of the job. Because I guarantee there's not 100% of whatever you're doing that give you energy and make you motivated and excited every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Learn to let it go. Right.
Yeah.
There's so many entrepreneurs that just don't want to let it go. They think that they are the best at it. Right.
Yeah.
And they're just simply not. Right. You can't be the best at everything.
Right. Right. Or you can try and it can cost you something, because it's always costing you something. You just may not be paying attention to what it is actually costing you, but it's definitely costing you something.
Awesome, for sure. Well, Linda, if people want to find you online, what's the best way?
I'm never prepared for this question. I would say if you like podcasts, listen to Everything Life and Real Estate. We talk about everything. We literally talk about everything. I have some great guests on there. I have the guy that wrote the book, Never Split the Difference. I have Dan Sullivan. Book. I got some great guests. I really try to go after people I want to ask great questions to. You can also reach out to me at lindamckisack.com. And then always what I love to give away, Rob, is our freedom number worksheet. Now, you probably worked on it when you were at our workshop, but it's, if you text to the number 33444, the words freedom number together as if it was one word, I would say start. If you haven't done this yet, sit down and figure out what kind of number do you need to have the lifestyle you want to have, and what are a few life's unexpecteds that might come up that would cause you to need more. Start with that number if you haven't already, or if you haven't done it, go back, sit down with your significant other and do that exercise.
I love that. That's great advice. And I remember doing that worksheet, and that number just keeps getting bigger.
But here's the cool thing. There's so many cool things you can do with too much. There's not much you can do with not enough.
That's right. That's right. For sure. Well, Linda, thank you so much for being part of Grid Talk. Tell Jimmy I say hi. I send my love, right?
Hey, you tell him he's in West Virginia at the Greenbrier trout fishing, so he's probably closer to you than he is to me.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Awesome. Well, hopefully he'll hopefully catches something nice. Show some pictures, right?
Yeah, he will.
Well, thanks, Linda. You take care.
Thank you. Appreciate it. You too.